Hi, I'm Joe, and thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. And I also want to thank the people that have been giving me the positive feedback. I'm really glad that you guys are finding some value in these videos, and it means a lot to me that you're sharing those thoughts with me, and also for you spending, again, the time to watch these. It does mean a lot. If you're new to this channel and you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing down below. It really does help support the channel for free. And also down below, I always want to encourage you that I have a link to the backing tracks that I use in all of my lessons. And I do this because when I was growing up learning guitar, there was not a lot of musical context. I would have a book with the notes in it, but I didn't have anything or anyone to play with. And I thought I would create these backing tracks for you to give you something to practice to and not make your practice so boring. This way you have something to play along to, and I really do hope that they're inspiring to you, and maybe they'll even spawn your own song ideas. So what is this video about? Well, this video we're looking at the 1-4-6-5 chord progression. And what we're doing is we're learning how to navigate those chord progression through different guitar parts throughout a song. So this song is in the key of G, and we're working on the chord progression 1-4-6-5. What does that mean? Well, every scale degree you can build a chord off of. So if we're in the key of G, the 1 chord will be G, the root. If we go up 4 scale degrees, G, A, B, C, we now have our 4 chord, C. If we follow that logic, we go now up to our 6th degree, that's going to be E minor. And if we go to our 5th degree of the scale, that's going to be D. So the chords we're working with again are G1, 4, C, 6, E minor, to the 5 chord, D. So that's all that means, 1, 4, 6, 5. Now there's 5 parts to this song. And the first one, we're just basically outlining the chord changes. What does that look like? Well, I'm taking this position here, this G chord, and I'm only using the top 2 notes, the root, G, and the 3rd, B. And I'm playing that shape. When I go to the 4 chord, I'm going to take that same position and just slide it down 1 set of strings because that's my C chord. You remember this from your basic chord shapes. But again, I'm only using the top half, again, the C and the E. So I'm just using, again, the root and the 3rd of that chord. I'm then going to slide up to play E minor here. And again, I'm playing the E and the G. Again, just the root, E, and the 3rd, minor 3rd in this case, G, for the E minor chord. And I'm going to slide my hand back down. So now I'm on the 5th fret of the A string with my 2nd finger there. And my 1st finger is right behind it on the 4th fret of the D string, picking up the F sharp. So I have a D and an F sharp. Again, I'm just playing the root and the 3rd of each chord. So the shapes look like this. Slide up to the E minor, down to the D. Now, what I'm going to do is just a little bit of a finger pattern. You notice I don't have a pick for this part. So I'm going to play So I'm basically picking the root to the 3rd, back to the root, and then jumping over to the next chord. Now, in the second to last pass, I actually go up, but I'm playing an inversion of the D chord. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the normal G to the C, play the E minor here, but now slide up that same shape. And what's happening here is I'm landing on an inversion. An inversion, or a chord inversion, basically means I no longer have the root in the bass, I have a different note. And in this case here, I have the F sharp. So it is the first inversion, because your D chord is made up of D, F sharp, and A. So I'm using the 3rd as the bass note now, and the A, the 5th, to make up that D chord. So it's called the first inversion. And then I'm going to slide up. So I've worked my way up basically to the octave G up here. Again, same notes, G, B, but now up here, G and B. All that's doing is adding a variation to the chord progression, but it's the same exact chords, but it spices it up. It makes it sound different to the listener listening to the song. So let me play that for you real quick. That was the normal pass. Now I'm going to do the variation. And then it repeats over. The second guitar part introduces a little bit of a melody into the progression. And all we're going to do is we're going to work off of our G chord here, the big block chord that you're probably used to, coming from that E shape. If you slide your hand up, this is a bar chord, and we're playing the full G here. Well, in this case here, I'm just going to use the top half. So if I remove these three fingers here, I'm kind of left with this shape. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the suspended fourth. So I'm going to basically take my third, which is the B, which happens to be the note that's on the 4th fret underneath my second finger on the G string. That's B. If I hammer on, which means I'm going to pick the B note, and then I'm going to hammer on with this finger the C note, I'm making a suspension in that chord. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to hammer that on, and then I'm going to pick the rest of the notes, which happen to be the D and the G, which happen to be underneath my first finger, because I'm doing a slight bar here with my first finger to play those notes. So this part goes like this. And I'm letting everything ring out. And then I'm going to pick up an A here, which is basically putting my pinky down on the 5th fret of the high E string, and then lifting it off to get back to the root, which happens to be underneath my first finger on the 3rd fret of the high E string. So this part slowly goes like this. Again, all it's doing is making a little bit of a melody line with the notes. So the third part is a very simple part, and all I'm doing is I'm sliding up from the 5th of the key, which is D, up to the E, which is a 6th, back down to the D, and it happens just like this. This part really is just a little bit of what I call ear candy. It's an extra little part, it's very simple, but the listener will pick up on it and hear it inside the song, and it adds just something extra to the chord progression. We're up to the 4th part of the song, and basically all this is doing is outlining a G chord to a C chord, and then we're cutting it off. What's happening here is I'm using this G shape, the bar shape, so we're basically taking an A chord shape, and if you imagine that this nut is your first finger, you can now take this shape and slide it anywhere, and it's called a bar chord because you're barring your fingers across multiple strings. But this shape will work in different places. And I'm using the same exact shape for the G and the C chord. And all I'm doing though is I'm breaking it up. I'm not using this full chord block. All I'm really interested in here is the root, which is G, and up high, I'm looking at the 3rd, which is B. And I'm basically plucking these two notes together, sliding this whole entire shape down to C, because my first finger is playing the root, C. And now I'm picking up the E, the 3rd again, of that chord, with my pinky on the 5th fret of the B string. So again, this part's very simple. It just adds a little bit, something light over the top. And then I dampen it, because I don't want those notes ringing out when the other chords are passing in the chord progression. The 5th part comes in a little bit later into the song, towards the end. And what it's doing, it's reinforcing the other parts in the song. A G chord, to a C chord, to a little bit of the E minor chord, to a D chord. And all I'm doing is I'm using chord fragments here. I'm obviously not using the full chord. It would look like this if I'm using the full chords. But what I'm doing is I'm basically focusing on the top 3 strings, primarily the top 2 strings. And basically I'm just playing 2 notes per chord. So for the G chord, I'm going to play the D and the G. For the C, I'm going to play C and the open E. For the E minor, I'm going to play both the open B and the E. And then for the D chord, I'm going to come down or closer to me one set of strings to play the D and the A. So this part goes like this. And the rhythm is slightly different than that in the actual song. I'm putting a little bit of a bounce to it, especially on the first and the third chord. And that's the fifth and final part of the song. And as you can see, all of these parts basically are accenting the chord tones that are within the chord progression in the key of G. Again, the 1, the 4, the 6, and the 5 chord. That's another video down for this series. I hope you found some value in it. And if you did, please consider supporting the channel for free by subscribing down below, hit the like button, and knock on the bell and you'll be notified when the next video comes out in this series. Again, I thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.